I'm back! Muli po, maraming salamat for your active participation. And this time, gusto ko na pong tawagin ang ating pong moderator para sa ating ipakilala ang ating first speaker this morning. Please welcome back once again, Dr. Freddy Ray Ramirez.
Yes, hello po. Good morning, everyone. Once again, good morning. I believe we are all excited to listen. Sir Steve, kindly tone down the sound of our background music. Ayan. Muli po isang magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. I believe we are all excited to listen to our first speaker for our first session. Actually, our first plenary session for this three-day Congress, for our reading Congress. Folks, it is my honor to present before you one of the finest education leaders in the Department of Education. Ladies and gentlemen, to give us the state of reading in the Department of Education in DEPED MIMAROPA region, here is our compassionate father of DEPED MIMAROPA, our beloved Regional Director, Dr. Nicolas T. Capulong. Good morning, RD.
Thank you so much, sir, for the kind introduction. Sige lang. Again, thank you and good morning to everybody. I am presenting with you the status of our reading proficiency. I have chosen this topic to serve as a springboard for the other topics for the rest of our session days. It is very important to understand this so we could devise, we could plot, we could craft later on our own actions in order to address the things that I will be presenting to you this morning. Thank you. The first slide, please. Ma'am San? Hello? Yeah, okay. It is said, especially by the famous writer James Russell, that reading is the key which admits us to the world of thought, fancy, and imagination. It can enable us to see the keenest eyes with the finest ears and listen to set voices of all times. As I have mentioned a while ago, that through reading we could learn more, we could understand other people, and it could trigger our creative mind as we read. From the book or from any reading material, we could see literally the lives of, and figuratively, the lives of other people. That would lead to better understanding and accepting others. That is why we cannot forego and we cannot overemphasize the importance of reading. But what is reading in the eyes of some experts? One of these experts is Dr. Villamin of then Philippine Normal University, who said that reading is an active dialogue between the author and the reader, meaning there can never be a communication unless the reader fully understands what the author was trying to convey through his article. If there is no understanding at all, then there is a failure in reading. That is why that is the active dialogue between the author and the reader. Okay? Through the reading, we could develop, we could find out answers to our questions in mind about the existence of anything and everything. And through reading, man, it takes man into the world of thought and imagination, an adventure which enables him to acquire clearer and deeper understanding of reality. And I would like to underscore this. Okay? What is the word of thought and imagination? Many philosophers would say that learning takes place when we conceive many things. It takes place with the processes of the mind. Okay, so meaning applying it in reading, through reading, we could create our own world of imagination. Later on, you would see meron akong i-discuss na the importance of reading as far as creative mind is concerned. So we could travel, okay, and see what others thought and what others believed on a particular topic, on a particular concern or subject matter. Okay, and because of that, we could acquire clearer, okay, and deeper understanding of reality. Um, you may be using literary pieces, you may be using editorial writings, you may be using news. What is important is the reader could understand what is so stated in a piece of paper or piece of text. So from this, our readers could have an understanding of what is going on in our society or what went then um, in the previous years so that they could improve further our existence. Like, for example, how come until now we are learning um, the classics of the Roman civilization, the Greek literature, because we would like to learn from them how they live, how they survive, and how these two great countries, okay, conquered literally the world, and what kind of civilization did they have during those times, so we could emulate, we could pattern our own civilization so that we can also be great someday like these two nations. And we can only do this, and we could, okay, understand this better by means of reading. Without even going to the countries, we could understand what went during those times. Okay, so it's very important, it's very essential, okay, for our learners, therefore, to develop that enthusiasm, to develop that interest in reading. Further, Dr. Villamin mentioned that reading is a subtle and complex process that involves stages of sensation, perception, comprehension, application, and integration. Meaning, there are other correlates, okay, that are involved in reading. Okay? Like, for example, in sensation, um, it involves the eyes. Okay? Or sometimes you have to listen and try to read, okay, what you try to verify what you have listened from or listened to. And then, of course, you try to assimilate, you try to understand what you have read, and that is comprehension. And again, that is the processes of the mind. Okay? And we do not just stop there. From what we have read, you try to apply what you have learned. Like, for example, for the functional reading for the senior high school, where they are taught on how to follow instructions. For example, kung sila ay nangungumpuni ng sirang television, may instructions doon kung paano nila gagawin. So after comprehending, after understanding, then they have to apply it. Okay? So the use of their hands, okay, it's so involved now in that reading. And of course, it's not ending with application. It is making a part of their existence, making a part of their life, those learnings, those skills that they have developed. Okay? So they have become now a part of their life. That is the integration. That's reading also is a process of thinking. Okay? Hindi naman ako alam na yung pagbasa ay walang pag-iisip. No? Karaniwan ay kapag nagbasa ka, involved ang the process of the mind. But again, we do not just stop there from thinking. They have to evaluate, they have to determine, okay, the veracity, okay, the integrity of a particular, or even the relevance of a piece of material. Okay? And from them, they can create, this what happened pala. This is pala what is expected of us. This is how to do this. So that is imagining. And then perhaps they do not agree on what the author wrote. Then they found, they try to find similarities or contradiction. And that is what we want, okay, as far as reading is concerned. So they could reason out. They may agree or disagree with a particular problem. And even perhaps, like for example, in solving math that involves problem solving, they cannot do this without really understanding the material. And so further, we say that there are few characteristics of the reading process that we should clearly understand. As I have mentioned a while ago, reading is a complex process. Okay, Ma'am San, the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so these are the basic characteristics of the reading process. One is reading. Okay, effective reading is partly dependent on the reader's prior knowledge and background experience, and that involves psychological, physiological, environmental, sociological, okay, and even linguistic competence. So the reader understands more the material because of their prior information or because of their background experience of that particular material. The next characteristic of reading is that reading makes use of linguistic system. That is true. So when you read and having a knowledge of syntax, orthography, or morphology of the language could help the reader understand better the material. Okay, and we say also that reading is an active process, as I have mentioned a while ago. It involves thinking, and that is being active. No, you do not just read, but you have to think, and that is being active. So when our students, I don't want to use the word react, I want to use the word respond. When the students respond to the material that they have read, then there's already an active participation among the learners or the reader themselves. Okay, if they don't respond at all, I think there is no reading also. Okay, and then the reading is okay, it's largely a visual process. Okay, hindi naman yata po tayo nagbabasa, no? Sa bunganga, no? Tayo po ay nagbabasa using our eyes. So that is why it is a visual process. And I also mentioned a while ago that it is a two-way process. It is an interaction between the writer and the reader. And finally, reading is a complex process. It is not so easy because, as I pointed a while ago, there are so many correlates, okay, that are involved in reading. Okay, but why is reading very important? Okay, first, reading helps you discover the word. Di ho ba, no? When we read, we understand and try to understand and will understand the people, the culture of that particular place, the values of the people, the tradition of these people, and that is understanding life. And if we understand life, and if we understand other people, then there's acceptance, then there is respect. And that is what we want in reading. Kaya nga po yung some higher order thinking skills na sinasabi natin yung valuing. Okay? Ito po yung kung kayo ay nagtuturo ng literature, ito yung mga katanong na, class, what is the lesson that you learned from this story? Or what did you learn from this? And what is the moral of this story? Okay? So, yun po ang giving value. Tsaka yung sinasabi natin, if you were, would you do that? If you were, how would you do it? No? So it's a valuing process, and that is very, very important. And it's not only valuing process. It's now, yung sinasabi ko po kanina, integration. Whatever they learn, the things that they have learned will become a part of their own daily life, of their own daily existence. And that is what we want in reading. Okay? For our people to understand other people, respecting their culture, their tradition, their values and life. Accept, and then they will respect. Certainly, reading develops imagination and creativity. That is why when we teach, we would like to help our learners to create mental pictures on what they are reading. That is why it's very, very important, especially if you're doing oral reading, no? Kapag po kayo ay nagtuturo, no, using the oral reading type, no, yung methodology, you try to help your learners create mental pictures, and creativity and imagination are indeed higher form of learning. Okay? So say for example, if it is an oral reading, yung ito gusto ko sa mga kinder, ito sa mga grade 1, yung nagbabasa ko yun. Say for example lang, no? Then there was this big, beautiful, etc. So kahit lang po yung volume nyo, no, ng voice ninyo would help create big daw. And then you say, she was so beautiful. Okay? Parang sa expression pa lang po ng boses nyo, using the role reading, you are now creating mental pictures among your learners, which is very important also. And then, of course, it is undeniable that when we read, when we let our students read, they develop further, they accumulate further vocabulary. Okay? They develop further the language. Okay? Lalo po nilang, they acquire more, okay, meaningful words when they read. And they could communicate further when they learn language through the reading. And of course, when you read, when our students learn, okay, they come to understand themselves. Ito po yung gusto natin din, no, sa teaching natin, yung after understanding the word, after discovering the word, they should also try to understand themselves, accepting themselves, okay? And that is learning also from others. That is also learning from the experiences of others, which they could acquire also from reading. So from there, they could build their own good self-image. And by means of that, sabi ko nga po, I may sound repetitious, accepting and respecting other people. And one thing that reading could provide us with is, of course, a sort of entertainment. Di po ba, no? Yung you enjoy what you read, no? Yung improves concentration and reduces stress na po sinasabi po natin, no? That is why meron po akong isang topic na pinaasan yung recreatory reading. How can we encourage our people to enjoy reading? Kasi seldom people now, especially our students, read. They would rather get their gadget and from there, look on something. Okay naman if they are reading books, no? E-books na sinasabi. Pero diba po, tinatin nila yung TikTok nila, yung Facebook nila. Okay? So this is how our experts in reading view reading and the importance of reading. At this point, I would like to share with you the performance of the Philippines in general, and of course, our region in particular, as far as proficiency in reading is concerned. As you all know, the Department of Education, okay, would like to provide quality basic education for all Filipinos. And it is our mandate that we see to it that there is an access, there is this quality, there is this relevant and liberating education for all the Filipinos. But how could we provide these things without looking into the state, okay, of the proficiency level of our students? Paano natin makabigay ng sinasabi ng quality kung hindi mo naintindihan ang background ng ating mga sinasakupan? That is why our country, and in particular through the leadership of our secretary, joined the international assessment of students, and that is the PISA, no, to find out the levels of proficiency of our students in reading, science, and math, so that we could properly address the challenge of improving quality education. That is why DEPED participated in the 2018 cycle of Program for International Student Assessment, okay, which is administered to the 15 years old learner o na malapit ng patapos sa kanilang basic education. So from there, we could have a good glimpse, a good idea how well our students perform as far as reading is concerned. And this is the thing that I would like you to see, the thing that I would like to analyze, so that when you go to your breakout sessions or with your plenary sessions with our speakers, things will be more clear and you could ask more questions on how to improve further, okay, the basic reading skills of our learners. But how could we do that if we do not really understand, okay, the status of the reading proficiency of our learners? Okay, slide please. Before I discuss the data, I think it's very important to understand as to what do we mean by reading fluency. When you say reading fluency, it has something to do with the easiness, the efficiency with which one can read. No? She does not struggle. She does not find any difficulty in reading and understand a piece of text. This reading fluency includes the ability to read words and text accurately and automatically. So that is fluency. When they could understand, when they could read and understand the text correctly. Okay? Yun po yung accurately and automatically at a glimpse, okay, they could digest, they could comprehend on what they are reading. They do not struggle. They do not find difficulty in understanding a piece of text. When you say also reading fluency, it involves paraphrasing and processing the text, okay, so that they could comprehend what they have read, okay, to comprehend, to understand the overall meaning of a particular text that they have read. And then, of course, reading fluency is possibly correlated with reading comprehension. Okay, in the PISA, there are sub-skills which were tested and measured. And later on, we will find out kung saan ba ang ating mga bata, no? Kung ano ang kanilang standing hot, no? Ng mga estudyante natin as far as reading proficiency is concerned. So, the slide says only 1 out of 5 Philippine students, 19.4%, achieve at least minimum proficiency of level 2. Okay? Ano pong ibig sabihin yan, no? Ng level 2? Okay? Ang ibig sabihin po niyan ay ang score ng bata ay mababa, no? Compared to the average score of the OECD. Okay? Mababa ho siya compared to other countries. Okay? So ang sabi po dito, among the participating Asian countries, Philippines perform closest but significantly behind Indonesia. Okay? Nasa baba po tayo, no? That is the reality. Okay? Mababa po ang performance natin sa reading. Okay? And it says further, no, the data in the PISA says further that 82% of our students in the Philippines did not reach a minimum level of proficiency in reading. Just imagine that po, no? 80% of our learners have not reached a minimum level of reading proficiency. Sa Tagalog, parang kulelat ho siya. Okay? Mamaya makikita ninyo kung ano ang performance natin, no? Sinasabi natin po kanina. Among the process tasks, no, the things tested by PISA, Filipino students obtain the highest mean score in locating information. What is locating information? Ito po yung sinasabi nating assessing and retrieving the information, wherein the readers, okay, often search for a particular piece of information without considering the rest of the text. Okay? The reader must be able to judge the relevance, accuracy, and credibility of the passage. In here, our students, say, for example, can simply find out, okay, the answer to a particular question. Okay, easily. Like, for example, po, who's the main character? They could point out if that is Maria, if that is Pedro. Okay, so okay, they could give you the information. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that they could understand the whole of the text. Okay, and what are the skills involved as far as locating information is concerned? Ito po yung tinuturo natin na scanning, no? When they scan the book and when they try to locate the basic information that we want our students to find out. Okay? The second one is searching for and selecting relevant text. And that is why we have to teach when teaching our learners to read. It is very important to teach them, no? How to understand the table of contents, how to use the glossary, and how to use the index portion of the textbook so that they could locate the needed information and then try to find it within the textbook that needed information. So that is scanning and locating and searching for selected relevant text. Okay? So dito po magaling ang ating mga bata. Okay? If I may say, simple recall. Okay? They could perform better. However, going to higher order thinking skills, they could hardly answer questions. Okay? Hindi po sila nakakaabot sa higher order thinking skills. Okay? They are good in selecting, in pinpointing the answers for the what, the who, the when, the where. But after that, they could not answer anymore. Just imagine that po, no? Over 80% could not and did not reach the minimum level of reading proficiency. The next slide will say that female students perform significantly better than male students in overall reading literacy. I think this is something that we have to ponder on, to reflect on. Palagi naman yung lumalabas, no? The female students perform better in languages, Filipino and English. Then, I think we have to look into what makes the female students perform better than the male ones. Okay? Siguro sa mga susunod po natin na mga researches, pwede ninyong gawin yun. Bakit parang mas magaling magbasa ang mga estudyante natin? What are the factors contributing to this kind of phenomenon? Why female students perform better than the male counterparts as far as reading is concerned? Okay? It says further that, unfortunately, male and even female students do not obtain the minimum proficiency. And minimum po, it's the level 2. Okay? And what is that? Meaning, sa test ho kasi, the students should have reached 407 plus in their score para magkaroon sila ng ganyang level. Unfortunately, ang nakita po ninyong overall natin, it's something about 340. So, napakababa ng performance ng mga estudyante po natin. Okay? So, both males and females failed to obtain at least the minimum proficiency level. Okay? Level 2, the desired level, at least, no, for our learners. And further, the next slide will tell us that students in private schools perform better than the students in public schools. Although kahit titignan mo po ang private ngayon, malayo pa rin po sa sinasabi nating at least level 2 which is 407 in the score points of the students. But look at this, there is a significant really difference between the scores of the two groups, okay? 390 and 328, a far cry, of the desired proficiency level sana, okay? I think this is a challenge to all of us in the public schools. How can we improve the teaching of reading? Okay? Do not tell me that because of course, I understand, no? Nandito rin sa PISA yung economic status of the learners affects greatly their performance. Okay? But do not tell me na mas marurunong. No? I could not accept that. Okay? Kasi paniliwala ko, pare-parehong marurunong yung mga bata. But it has something to do on how we develop this karunungan among our learners. I think we have to look into this. Okay? The teaching capability of the teachers in teaching reading has to look into the instructional materials that they are using. And of course, the reading habit of the learners must also be looked into so that we could understand better and we could adapt perhaps the best things that are being done by private schools so that we can improve the teaching of reading in and among public schools. Okay. Further, the senior high school students perform better than the junior high school students. At tignan niyo po ninyo, no? At least yung sa senior high school, medyo nakakaabot na, no? Doon sa sinasabi nating desired, no? Medyo pumapasok na sa 407 sa level 2. But what's wrong with our junior high school? Okay. Hindi ho ba sila estudyante din natin yan? Bakit pagdating sa high school, sa senior, they perform better? I think this is a big challenge among reading teachers in the junior high school that we have to look into also. Okay? Ano ba ang nangyayari sa junior high school? Bakit mas mababa sila sa senior high school students natin? Okay? The next slide will tell us further that the reading literacy score of students residing in urban was higher than the rural. No? Alam naman po natin yan, given po yan. No? Pero maraming mga researchers ang sinasabi naman na mas maraming distraction. No? There are a lot of distractions in urban areas when we compare to rural areas. Okay? You know, when I was a superintendent here in Pampanga, our schools in the rural communities, okay, perform better than those community schools in the urban communities, no? Because of the many distractions. Mayroong mga malls, may sine, patawag po, computer shops, etc., which are not present in the rural areas. But they were saying that the people in rural areas are less exposed to mass media, say for example, newspapers, magazines, and other reading materials when compared to the learners living in urban communities. But of course, these are just simple hypothetical answers to justify, no, the performance of the rural students. But I think as concerned individuals, it is a challenge again to all of us, especially those schools in the rural community, how we can improve our schools, the delivery of learning to our students so that they can at least cope up with the performance of their counterpart in the rural areas. Okay? Sige ho. Then, what can Filipino students do in reading? Sige ma'am. The Philippines' average performance is between proficiency level 1, and that is the lower minimum proficiency level. Level 1A, the student should have scored 334.75. Okay? Ganyan ho tayo. Hindi man tayo umabot dun sa level 2. That is why we perform dismally as far as reading is concerned. And majority of our students, as pointed out, failed to score higher in the reading assessment conducted by PISA. Okay? The next slide will tell us also that the Filipino students can understand the literal meaning of sentence or short passages, recognize the main theme and make single connection between several and adjacent pieces of information. Okay? Yun po yung sinasabi ko kanina na they could answer the questions of what, the who, the when, and the where. But more than that, they find it very hard. They find it very difficult to answer questions of how, questions of why. Ito po yung part na hindi sila ito yung, they could do yung tawag po natin, simple recall. Okay? They could do that, but they cannot answer questions involved inferring, synthesis, organization of ideas, okay? Valuing, and even judging. No? Yung judging yung the form and the style of the writer. They cannot do this anymore. So, doon lamang po ang parang nagiging kakayahan ng mga estudyante natin. No? Simple recall ang kayang-kaya po nila. Okay. Further, the data will show us, Ma'am San, that 36% of our students, okay, were classified as having proficiency level 1B. And what is level 1B? Our students scored 262.04 in the test, okay? Which means this percentage of Filipino students can evaluate the literal meaning of simple sentences, scan for, locate simple piece of prominently placed and explicit stated information in a single context or short text. Okay? Madali po silang makalocate yung sinasabi ko kanina. Okay? They can scan it. However, it says there, okay? Pag sinabi po natin single piece of prominently piece of paper or material, when they use other resources or other texts, they cannot connect the information from the other resource materials to another resource material. Meaning, if we will give them another text, they could hardly now answer questions. Kaya, I do not know, parang ang dating ay, they tend to memorize what they read. Then, if you will change the textbook or the text, but you will ask the same skills in reading, they could not answer it. Okay? Say, for example, if you are teaching them si Pilar at Pepe, sino si Pepe, sino si Pilar, kayang-kaya na yan. Pero palitan mo si Pepe at Pilar, papalitan mo ng si Malakat at si Maganda, si Magayon, etc. Hindi na po nila kayang sagutin. Okay? So, ang tendency nga po ay minememorize nila kung yung nabasa, kaya kaya nilang sagutin. But change the material, but you will test the same reading skills, they could hardly perform. Okay? That is why po na ganyang kababa ang ating reading performance. Next slide, please. Then, 26.74% of our students perform within proficiency level of 1A. Okay? Ito na po yung mababa natin, no? Mababa. Ang sinasabi natin 1A ay 33.34 lang po ang kabuang na score nila. Meaning, the student can understand the literal meaning of sentence or short patterns and recognize the main theme of or even the purpose of the writer. They can make simple connection between several adjacent pieces of them or between the given information of their own prior knowledge. Okay? Kokonti ang mga bata natin nakakaabot sa kanyang level of proficiency. Meaning, marami pa rin pong mga bata that they could recognize, okay, simple recall, but going further, they could hardly answer some questions. Okay? Sige ho. Next slide, please. Yan. In total, about 80% of Filipino students were classified as having proficiency level below level 2. This means that majority of our students cannot identify the main idea. Ito po ang sinasabi ko kanina. In a piece of text of moderate length and may have difficulty in making comparison based on a single feature text and in making connection between text and outside knowledge. Ito po yung binanggit ko kanina. If we will change the text, but if you will ask the same reading skills, they could hardly perform. Okay? They cannot connect, in other words. Okay? Parang sa math, no? Kung bibigyan mo sila ng table for them to analyze, and then papalitan mo lang yung item sa table instead of apple, instead of balls, papalitan mo ng other figures, they could understand it. They cannot make connections. Okay? They can make simple recalls, as I have said. However, okay, they cannot identify the main idea of a piece of text. Ito po yung sinasabi yung what could be, yung tinatawag natin na what could be the purpose of the writer? What is the main idea of the text? Okay? Meaning, they could hardly draw conclusions. They could hardly make judgment. Okay? They find it very difficult to do this. Okay? Getting the main idea. Okay? And more so, because they cannot, okay, sabi ko po kanina, analyze things if they use different texts. Yung comparison na sinasabi po natin, or even make connections of between and other sorts of materials that they are using or they are reading. Mabagal ang i-process po nila yung mga information. Kaya po ito yung mga batang, they rely always and almost with a single text, a single reading material. Kaya kung nung normal po ang klase natin, parang ang alam lang nila, yung libro nila, yung textbook nila. Kapag binigyan mo ng ibang textbook, ng ibang author, hindi na po nila kayang i-process. Okay? Kaya ito po, no, majority of our students, they perform really poorly in reading. Further, only 0.05 of our students, ito po yung pinakamataas na sana ng level natin. Ito yung nakaka-score na ng 625. Only 0.05. Okay? Students can comprehend lengthy text, can infer yung pong sinasabi ko kanina, can get relevant information on what they have read. Only a few of our learners. Because majority, as I have said, they could not process this anymore. Okay? Sige, Ma'am San. Yan. How do we perform in the context of the PISA? I am showing this not for us, no, to criticize, to feel frustrated on the state of reading in our gen, but to serve as silence for all of us. Okay, so we can do something about this. Comparing our score among the 17 regions in the Philippines, we are at number 13. Okay? Number 13 po tayo. Ang mini-score po natin is 327, no? Na napakababa compared po sa OECD desired na 400 plus. Okay? Hindi po talaga tayo umabot sa sanang gusto natin, no? So, you see, among the 17 region, we are number 13. Okay? Wala man po tayo dun sa gitna, sa median. Nandito na po tayo sa duluhan. So, it is really a big challenge on our part to do more, to do everything that we could do to improve the reading proficiency of our learners. The next slide will show you further. Okay? The proficiency level of our learners is starting from 1C, that is the poorest, then 1B, 1A, and then going to the highest level of reading. Just imagine po, no? 16.62% are in the lowest. Then I would say a majority are in the 1B, 44.9%. And then a few are in the 1A. Ito po yung they could get the meaning, they could understand, 25.35. And then going further, yung sa number 5 po, doon sa even number 4, there are only few students who could infer, could conclude, could draw conclusion, could get the meaning of the text, could compare and contrast their text with other texts that they are using. Only a very few of our students could do that. Kaya nga po, halos majority ito po yung sinasabi natin 1A to 1B to 1C below. These are the 80+% of our students who perform very poorly in reading. As far as information task is concerned, ano po yung sinasabi nating information task, no? Kung ano ang pinagagawa sa mga estudyante po natin, no? How they locate information given the materials, okay? So, it says here po further na as far as this thing is concerned, out of 17 region, ours is number 12. So, kung titingnan po uli, nasa baba tayo uli. No? As regards the task to understand, ito po yung locating information, yung kanina yung sinasabi po natin na the ability to scan, to ability to locate, the ability to search for meaning, to ability to select relevant text. No? Number 12 po tayo sa rank. And then as far as the understanding is concerned, okay, the next slide will tell us again that MIMAROPA as far as understanding, ito po yung sinasabi nating in quotation reading comprehension. Again, we are 12.5. Nasa baba po tayo. And understanding involves constructing a mental representation of the content of a piece of text. Okay? The reader recognizes the meaning conveyed in the passage, representing literal meaning, where the reader must paraphrase sentence or short passages so they can match the target information designed by the task. Okay? So, meaning ho, dito ay, again, yung kaninang nasabi ko, they could hardly answer questions of how and the why, but they could answer questions of who, what, when, or where. However, if you will change the text, but you will test the same skills, again, they could hardly answer. So more so, if you will change the text, now the students could not get the meaning of the passage. Okay? So, dito po sa task na ito, we rank 12.5. Okay? And the next is the reflect task. Yun ang sinasabi po natin. Okay? So, it is here. The next slide, please, Ma'am Sam. Okay? In here, our students failed to go beyond understanding the literal or the inferred meaning of a piece of text or set of text to assess the quality and validity of its content. Okay, so they could not now assess the quality and the credibility of the text. Okay, they could not judge the accuracy, if there are the opinion of the writer. Okay, they cannot judge the content, the form, the quality, the style of the text. Okay, tingnan po yung tinatanong na natin yung sagot ng did you enjoy the short story? What made you enjoy it? What can you say about the style of the writer? How did the writer explain these things and all these things? Now they cannot answer this anymore. Okay, and we rank number 12 as far as this task is concerned. The next slide will tell you that even using a single source, okay, single source, mahirapan pa rin po yung mga estudyante natin. Nasa 12.5 pa rin po tayo. Again, nasa baba. Meaning, isang libro na ang ginagamit, isang text na lang ang ginagamit or passage, still our students find it very difficult to answer, to comprehend what they have read. Okay? What if pa kung they will be using double source of information? Okay? Next, Ma'am San. So, number 13 po tayo. So, from the PISA result, you could see now the different levels of our learners and the different tasks that they could perform. In general, there's one thing as far as reading proficiency is concerned among our learners. What about our local assessment? Yung po kanina international, baka sabihin na, kasi because of the language, because of the time, etc., because of other factors that might have affected the results of the PISA. But what about our own instruments in assessing the proficiency level of our learners? Our own FILI results, both in English and Filipino, would validate and confirm the results of the PISA. In English, yes, ma'am. Yeah. You would see here now the number of students, okay, with prostration level, with instructional level, and who are independent in reading. Okay, there are still, okay, among our learners who are experiencing reading difficulty. Kahit sabihin po natin, oh, sir, 628 po ang grade 1, 1,004, 222, 1,133. But these are still a big number of learners who could hardly read. Okay? And then, of course, there are people who are instructional. They can be taught. They could be assisted. They could be guided. They could be taught or mentored in order to improve their reading. What we would like sana to see is they would become more independent, that they could read by themselves. And if you will see the last graph over there, yung sa grade 4, okay? Naku, napakarami po pa rin ng sinasabi natin instructional at konti pa rin ang ating independent at marami pa rin ang ating mga frustration levels as far as readers are concerned. And that is for the elementary English. Okay? So, kahit sabihin po natin, so, konti, but these are still a number that we have to look into because this affects so much the performance of our students in the other subject areas. Okay? Further, the next slide will tell us, okay? Yan. Tingnan po ang kanilang level pa rin, no? Dami pa rin po na dapat nating lakarin dito. Okay? Sige, ma'am. Yan. Okay? Okay? The challenge. So you see here now, in the secondary level, there are still a number of students belonging to the frustration level. Of course, at least yung dependent, okay na. But you see, there are still people na non-reader. No? Just imagine, magpa-first year, non-reader ho sila. What will happen to these learners? Okay? Of course, I do not know kung papasa yan, no? Sa kanilang other subject area. At least, no, there is a growing number of instructional students on their instructional level that we could count on and improve on pa, so that they can be independent readers someday. Okay. The next slide, for grade 8, the same, no? Parehong-pareho po, no? So ito po yung dapat nating matingnan. Kasi ho, once you pass your students who are non-reader, they will be promoted to the next grade level. They bring with them their disability in reading, and we are not helping them. And I think so na itong mga instructional, hindi sila nag-improve further. No? Yung grade 7, na pumunta ng grade 8, they are still instructional. I think you have to look into this. Dapat sana nabawasan na ang instructional, lumaki na ang ating independent readers. No? But it seems they have the same proportions of that of grade 7. What about grade 9? Same po, no? Kung titignan ninyo, no? Pareho din, no? Although lumaki-laki na ng kaunti ang ating independent, pero kung titignan niyo pa rin po ay marami pa rin mga bata ang nasa frustration level. Ito sana ang gusto natin silang nababawasan ng nababawasan. Dapat kumukonti yung kulay blue or kung ano ang nasa inyo, dapat lalaki yung orange o kaya yung gray area. No? But it seems, no, kukunti po yung movement nila, no, from grade 7, 8, and 9. Okay? And then grade 10, pareho po, no, nung nasa grade 9, no? Yung mga batang instructional, most likely, they're also the instructional students with instructional level who are now enrolled in grade 10. Although nabawasan na po ang frustration natin ng konti, pero ano yan? Patapos na sila ng high school at marami pa rin ang ating mga non-readers. Okay? Paano po ngayon yan? No? Nasa frustration level. Just imagine 2,596. They will be promoted to senior high school. So they bring with them their disability in reading. And that contributes to the poor state of our education. Okay? What about in Filipino? Again, Filipino will affirm the same. No? Kung ano ang nakita ng PISA, kung anong nakita ng English, nakita din ng Filipino. Okay? So, you have here our non-reader. Okay, there. For grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6. So, meaning, my dear learners, sige pa ho. The next, hanggang grade, yan. So, meron pa rin ho yan, although din nakalitaw yung kulay, no, you would see there are still, even in Filipino, who are, unfortunately, non-readers. And they graduate from our schools without mastering the skills in reading. I present this data, okay, not to criticize our work, but to serve as a challenge for all of us on what concrete steps should we undertake in order to help our learners. Okay? That is why the sessions that you will be having for this day, on the next day, and the lesson will help you a lot to understand better on the different approaches on how to teach reading. There can never be quality education without quality reading. And this is the challenge to all of us, is that we have to improve pedagogical practices. We have to improve even our classrooms to make them more motivating, inviting, and conducive for learning. We have to improve the capacity, the capability of our teachers, okay, so that they will be more inspiring. Okay? They could devise engaging activities for the learners. And perhaps, okay, even to improve our instructional materials. So they will be more relevant, okay, challenging to our students. This is the state of reading in our beloved region. It is really a call to come together, to join forces, to brainstorm, to think further on how we can help our readers who will be the future leaders of our region and of our country. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Ma'am San, for assisting me. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much po, RD, for the comprehensive and informative and substantial sharing of a backgrounder about reading, as well as the realities of the context or state of reading in the Philippines, particularly in our region. So now we are now opening the virtual floor for some queries, clarifications from our audience. Do you want to clarify something as regards the presentation of our RD? Baka po meron tayong mga tanong, or we also encourage you to give your key takeaways. Baka po meron kayong mga insights na gusto nyo i-share, experiences. Yes. We are opening our virtual floor. You may just click the raise hand button, or you may maximize the use of our chat box. Ano po? So, RD, while we are waiting for some questions or clarifications, let me read some of the comments from our participants. So we have here one from Sir Gerson Orbiso of SDOPPC. Based on the data given by RD, I was able to realize the need for relevant interventions and specific mechanisms in improving the performance of the students. Thanks, RD, for the data. Hope we could use this for future research po. Yes, Sir Gerson. Thank you very much po.
That's right.
Opo.
Sir, may I give some opinion regarding that? Actually, if you will be reading thoroughly the result of the PISA, you would see other factors. Kaya lang hindi ko na po mention kasi kung PISA ang pag-uusapan, baka hindi na tayo matapos ng 3 araw. But I think we will be holding other sessions, okay, so that we could digest properly and correctly and very specifically the causes of poor performance all over the Philippines as far as reading is concerned. So that tama si sir, so that we could address this, okay, properly through our own action research. And that will be one of the agenda na nagagawin natin sa ating reading research agenda for this next fiscal year, that we will be concentrating on how to improve the reading abilities of our students, para kahit man lang yung mga action research niyo sa mga paaralan could help address immediately the issues on reading. I cannot say na it is a teacher factor, it is a classroom factor, it's an instructional material factor. We have to have a strong basis so we can pinpoint exactly the cause or the causes of reading, and we could provide therefore the right solution for this problem. Thank you.
Salamat po, RD. We also have another one here from PPC again. I have to agree with the data as we are experiencing the same with our students even during this pandemic, as reflected on the written answers to even simple questions. So thank you, RD, for presenting the data. Yes, I agree with you, ma'am. Salamat po.
Alam mo, sir, our FR, merong isang article na akong nabasa. I think she is a professor at the De La Salle University. So hindi ko lang nakopya ang lahat ng sinabi niya. Sabi niya, the difficulty that we are experiencing today with the use of the SLMs, yes, we can teach them. But we do not teach, for example, phonics, phonetic awareness, di ba?
Yes, sir.
Hindi na ituturo ito na hindi kamukha ng face-to-face na very important. And ako, kasi naging literary teacher din ako, no? Ako mahilig kasi dun sa oral reading, no? Yung nga sinasabi ko yung vocal expressions, very, very important in reading. That triggers the creative mind of our learners, which is not found when we are just using the SLMs, okay? That is why ako hopefully sana makapag face-to-face na tayo para maibalik, no, yung enthusiasm of our teachers in teaching reading.
Yes, sir. And I also have to agree with Ma'am Grace Marinay kasi sabi niya, it's a good basis po talaga for action research po talaga. Yes, we really encourage you here in the region to conduct researches po to address the reading difficulties of our students. Ayan,
Sir
RD,
FR,
go ahead po.
meron ako na. You know, marami nagsasabi kasi na, ay, bakit marunong sila sa Filipino, sa English, hindi marunong, ganyan. Hindi po totoo yun. When you are good in Filipino, using Filipino language, you are also good in English because these are languages, and you are using the same coconut when you speak in Filipino, when you speak in English. Pareho po yan. Okay? That is what nakita po ninyo kanina, no? The results of the PhilErie in Filipino confirms the result of English. Okay? So we are not talking about the languages themselves, but we are talking about the reading skills. What are the reading skills involved in Filipino? Pareho po yan, no? And even in English. Okay.
Yes, sir. RD, we have a good question here from Oriental Mindoro. Good morning po. Would like to clarify po on the PhilErie result in elementary, especially in English grades 1 to 3. Since English is focused more on listening, speaking, rather than reading. Maybe the reason behind the low data. Thank you po.
Yeah. If my memory serves me right, and if Ma'am Edna would confirm, wala pa tayong PhilErie ng grade 1 to 3. I think we start with grade 4. Tama ba? No?
Yes po.
Tama.
Yes,
Kaya
sir.
nga,
Opo.
ako, I suggest we will devise our own material, no? Our own reading assessment for kinder and grade 3. It's a good idea, no? Narinig ko yan sa teacher. So that we have a comprehensive analysis and assessment of the reading. Kasi kung na-develop na yun sa kinder, ako kasi naniniwala po, dadalhin na yan, no? Kaya ako paniniwala ko dun pa lang sa kinder dapat ay maturo ng mahusay ang pagbasa.
Yes, yes po. Another rejoinder from Sir Gerson Orbizo. Sir RD, is there a need to realign or contextualize our reading assessments with the structure of PISA, or we will stick to PhilErie po? Can we also focus on a specific reading comprehension subskill if this is the real problem, or we will come up with a holistic reading assessment?
There are standard type of assessment tools which we cannot simply modify. Like for example, the PISA, no? It is a standardized tool. PhilErie has become a standardized tool used by the Department of Education. Okay. Ako, personally, when I was a English supervisor, I came out with our own assessment tool for secondary school. Okay? Aside from the PhilErie that we use. Kasi, tama siya. There are, I think, skills which might not have been covered by the PhilErie. Okay? Which we are now teaching now. Okay? Baka lumaki na ang scope natin. Baka ang PhilErie hindi niya naabot. No? Hindi niya na-comprehend. If there are contextualization of instructional materials and even approaches in teaching, I would say, yes, let us contextualize our instructional tools for our own use only. But if we are following national examinations, then we cannot do anything about it because these are standardized tests. But I encourage contextualization of these things, okay? Following the standards of test and measurement, of course.
Opo. And then another we have from SDO Oriental Mindoro. Can we adopt the use of EGRA and EGMA in assessing K-3 learners since the focus here is MTB?
Yeah. Actually, there will be a program encouraging us the EGRA EMRA. It's correct. Yes. Why not? No. If this will help us assess and to have a clear understanding of the status of our learners, I don't see anything wrong about this. Okay.
Okay, thank you po. How about the others? Do you have some more questions from the other SDOs? Baka mayroon po kayong ibang nais iklaro or new insights to share to our participants. How about from the other SDOs? May we have from Calapan City or from Mindoro, Romblon, Marinduque? Kasi we already heard from PPC and Oriental and Palawan. Some more questions, clarifications. Ito po, another. Based from experience, many students resort to copying from Google without any care if they commit plagiarism. They answer only for the sake of answering and compliance and not understanding for their benefit. This backs up the data presented that the students are mostly good at literal questions, yes,
That's right. That's right.
but not on a deeper level of understanding. I agree
That's
with
right.
you, ma'am, from PPC.
Right. I agree. That is the difficulty and one of the downside of using SLMs. No? We can't really follow up. We can't really supervise our students. But
Directly
you know,
monitor.
intellectual dishonesty is a kind of thing that we have to discuss very clearly with our students. Okay, sana they don't have to engage with this. Okay, alam niyo, baka naman lumalabas ako sa topic kasi ang problema natin mga Pilipino in general, we are grade conscious people, we are diploma conscious people. Kaya ganyan yan kapag gusto yung mga grade na matataas but in reality hindi naman din ang totoo. Diba? Okay? Sige.
Yes, sir. Opo. Do you have some more questions? Actually, RD, we have more thank yous here for the insights shared by you. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, RD.
Sir FR, if I may only, no, ang susunod natin project na pipeline, announcement na yan sa ating mga teachers dito. Nag-iipon kami talaga ng mga materials na pwede ninyong gamitin. No, nag-iipon na kami ng poems, ng short stories, ng novels, ng fables, ng rhymes and meters, which we would like to compile and share them with you. Kasi ako nung nag-aaral, no, I enjoy yung mga fables, yung ganyan, no, mga parables. And then, alin ang magaganda dito, no? Yan ituturo pa rin natin sa mga bata. You know, seldom that I hear kindergarten learners and grade 1 do reciting jingles and rhymes, di ba, no? Seldom do I hear elementary pupils reciting poems and even junior high school. They have forgotten the beauty of studying literature, which are very good springboard for developing reading. Okay? Sige.
Yes, RD. Another one, RD, from STO Palawan, from Abigail Constantino. Exactly, it seems that most learners nowadays are more of shallow readers, wherein the beauty of reading between the lines, I think this is reading between the lines, and beyond the lines are already observed with minimum appreciation. Yes.
Right.
Salamat po, Ma'am Abigail. How about the others po kaya? Yan. From Oximin, contents, resources, and materials should be within the latitude of contextualization and localization in relation to reading comprehension.
You know, when I was a high school teacher, I use ordinary newspapers for my reading. Okay? That is contextualization. Okay? Hindi na ako gumamit ng kasi yun ang available, no, nung panahon namin na teacher. But I made my students learn. You know, ako kasi naniwa, it has something to do with the creative way of teaching. Okay? Kahit yung mga posters lang, no, meron ka na magawang what, where dyan, no? Yung mga posters nilang ganyan. No? We can make this, that is contextualization. Just to share this with you, when I was a high school teacher, I taught word literature. Okay? You know, one time I was teaching, I think, Decameron. Okay? First it was a silent reading, guided reading. then I started to assess comprehension. They could hardly answer me. I got frustrated. Okay? And so parang nagalit talaga ako. Sabi ko, so ano palang gusto niyong pag-aralan? Kasi world literature yan. Ganyan-ganyan. Galit ako. You know, one of my students, fourth year high school students, okay, one of them stood up and said, Sir, pwede ba? Sabi niya sa akin, fairy tale? What? Fairy tales? That is good only for kinder. That is only for, you know, there is a reaction of the very idealist teacher. So when I went home, I started to write my lesson. Kasi nung pong panahon namin, gumagawa po kami ng detailed lesson plan. Okay? Palagay ko nakatulong po ng maganda sa akin yon. Okay? Sabi ko, paano yan? Gusto nila ganyan-ganyan. Similarly, I cannot compromise my classical literature, world literature classics. Hindi ko ata kayang i-compromise sa fairy tale na yan, sabi ko. So sabi ko, let me try. So I started to write my questions, di ba? I am developing simple recall, the who, the where, di ba? Ganyan. And then I tried to develop yung organization of ideas, and then inferring, ganyan, no? Yung if you were, and then a question of synthesis, and then yung meron pang sa literary learning yung predicting outcomes, di ba ganyan? Or what will happen? Parang ganyan. And then finally judgment. You know, when I presented this, naku, the whole class was listening. Everybody was listening. That is, I came to realize, why not give what is interesting to the students? Why should we insist on what we believe is interesting to them, but never compromise the skills to be developed? I use other materials, but I was still develop the reading skills that I was supposed to develop among my learners.
Yes, RD, I agree with you po. Ayan, sabi po ni Sir Mark Angelo Mesana, I think he is from, tama ba ako? From Romulan Basisir. The love for reading is not inculcated to our students nowadays. That's why the reading and comprehension skills is low. They are more on gadgets nowadays. Moreover, they could search easily for answers in the questions given to them at the net. Yes, sir. May mga ganun nga sila. Pero siguro if you could be able to inculcate in them the passion for reading, siguro po ay you could be able to develop in them yung po tagang passion for reading sa kanila.
You know, Sir FR, when we were in high school, nadatnan ko pa yun, na meron kaming ginagawang book report.
Yes,
We
sir.
were asked to read a short story, and then we have to summarize it, we have to identify the character, etc. I think that helped us a lot, no, to develop our reading comprehension. Pwede naman siyang ibalik ngayon, sabi ko, no, para mga bata ay matuto. Kaya lang, gagawin nila yon inside the classroom kapag okay na. Hindi yung assignment, baka pagagawa na naman sa lola niya.
Yes, sir. Sabi po ni Ma'am Cynthia, the data challenge us to do something like phonemes training to enhance us in teaching reading since it is the foundation. Yes, ma'am. Siguro po, Ma'am Cynthia, we will try to address that in one of our sessions in this 3D Congress. Siguro po, yes. We have our speakers for that.
Yeah, perhaps a follow-up training also, teaching phonemes, phonetics, something like that. No, so sa methodologies naman. Yes, why not?
Yes po, opo. Sabi po ng isang teacher, based on my experience, nawala ng kaunti, based on my experience as a grade 1 teacher, it is very important for us to be more creative, to get the attention of my pupils, and for them to be interested. Yes. Kinakailangan po talaga kasi very short po ang span ng attention ng ating mga bata. Ano po, parang I think sa pagbata, parang maximum of 15 minutes lang sila ang kailangan attention span. So we really have to make our interaction with them interesting. Ano po, kaya nga diba, colorful ang mga materials and so on.
Right.
Ayan. Next, we have some more here, RD. Agree, RD, as teachers, we should never forget our many roles to our stakeholders, particularly to our students, to be dynamic and flexible without compromising the goal set for a particular subject.
That's right. I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah. And you know,
hopefully we could.
You know,
ahead.
Sir FR, the right term perhaps is flexibility in teaching. If you, like, for example, in high school, no, you are assigned to hold 4 sections, something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean your method in section 1 will also be the method in section B. You have to be flexible, no, in your methods of and that is very, very important. Okay? Do not insist yung sinasabi ko na ito ang pamamaraan na gusto ko. Okay? Adapt the interest of your learners. It's very important in reading. And choose worthwhile reading articles. Okay? Mag-umpisa kayo sa anong gusto nila. Yung you go down to their level and slow you pull them up until finally they would appreciate what you're appreciating also.
Yes, sir. Sir, we have a question here from FB Live, actually from Sir Lawrence Ilhi. How do we know that academic honesty is implemented given the modality we have in our respective schools?
Yeah.
Most of our learners here are looking for a multiple choice type of assessment that is much easier rather than an easy type to gauge their comprehension in reading texts.
Right. You know, morality cannot be ano sabi ko doon, you cannot legislate morality. How would you know if there is intellectual honesty on the part of our people? Philosophy kasi, I still believe in the goodness of the person. No? Then I go back to the values of our people. Then reading kasi, it's not a matter of simple recall. It's yung nasa sakop na po siya ng higher thinking orders yung sinasabi kong valuing. It is there you should emphasize the values that you would like to develop among your people. And that is one, yung intellectual honesty na sinasabi natin. Okay? Na, of course, ngayon talagang hindi natin siya masubaybayan. Hindi talaga natin siya makikita. Talagang ako naniniwala, nahihirapan naman talaga tayo dyan. Kaya gusto natin siya validate. But I always believe in the goodness of the person. And then we have to re-educate our parents. That is why we had our seminars for parents, no? How to assist their children in this time of pandemic. Dapat reorient din sila. I-orient din ang kanilang mga kasama sa bahay na turuan ng bata na mahirapan, no? Sagutin. Yun ang kaya niya, but guide them. But do not answer for them. Then we are perhaps solving the reading question in the problem, but we are also creating another problem. And these are people who are dishonest individuals. Okay? Perhaps I am encouraging you also to inculcate values on your sessions, no, with your learners, and even with their parents. Okay?
Yes, RD. Insight from Calapan City Division, as we implement PhilErie, students do have different approaches with different texts as they change levels. Teachers should not be tired of giving more drills and exercises.
Yeah, that's
A
I agree.
school-based reading program plays an important role together with Brigada Pabasa, which we usually done within barangays amidst pandemic. Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Salamat po. Thank you
Right.
po.
You know, two important segments of teaching. Yung sinasabi natin, developing skills. No, yung part ng lesson plan natin, yung we fix, ang tawag natin, fixation yata ang tawag doon, no? When we try to develop the particular skills through drills and exercises. Then after that, it should be followed up by enrichment activities. When you provide the students to work by themselves, no, the activities, no, before the assessment. Walang shortcut kasi ngayon kung minsan tuturo lang, walang fixation of skills, evaluation na kaagad. Kaya lumilitaw, nahihirapan din yung mga bata. There should be the fixation of skills, then there should be the enrichment of the skills, then there should be the assessment of the skills.
Yes, sir. Siguro, sir, we will have two more last questions. Another one we have from Calapan City. What if our learners have dyslexia? Are there mechanisms, programs in DEPED to detect it?
I think you could also ask our lecturer for the kinder, something like that. Na
Yes,
pwede
sir.
siyang makatulong doon, mga reading experts natin.
Apo.
If there might be some schools who could help us, no, you know how to resolve and to address problem of dyslexia. Okay? I am not really a reading expert. Mamaya yung mga speakers natin, no, pwede silang sumagot. Napakagandang tanong noon. However, ang gusto ko lang sagot doon ay, then if once you have discovered that your student is suffering from this, then medical assistance, if there is, you have to provide them with. Alam niyo ang nakita ko sa isang research, kaya daw hindi masyadong marunong magbasa yung mga bata. Kasi kung minsan pinipilit natin iupo sa upuan na malapit o malayo, hindi natin tinitignan kung sila ay they are suffering some visual problems. Okay? Merong mga farsighted, merong nearsighted, but we place them as we want them to be placed into without considering the physical attributes of our learners. Okay? O kaya naman may kahinaan ng kanyang tenga. Tapos pinipili, ay, doon ka sa dulo kasi ang apelido mo, Zamora, doon ka. Kaya kapag nagre-read na sila, ano yan? Ano yun nag-iingay? Kasi hindi niya naririnig. O kaya hindi siya nakakabasa. Ano yan? Ano yan? And then sabi niya, wala kang disiplina. It has something to do with classroom management and it has something to do with sitting arrangement also.
Yes, RD. Actually, we have an expert for that. Siya po ay para bukas, Dr. Clarissa Guia.
Right.
Yes, apo. And last one, RD, one of the problems in this era is also the love for books is disappearing. I can clearly remember at the age of 5, we can read books, stories, poems. We enjoyed it. Today, kids would resort to YouTube for stories. Yes, I agree with you, sir.
That is why, alam
And
mo,
thank you so much.
Sir FR, nung ako ay teacher, word literature nga yan, mga short stories, The Necklace, The Vampire, The Lottery Ticket, kung natatandaan niyo yung mga
Yes, sir.
story ganyan, no? Ang ginagawa ko, hindi ako masyadong nagbibigay ng paper and pencil test. Kung minsan, pinatadrama ko, no? Yung synopsis ng story, the next day or kaya the next week, they will dramatize the story. I don't care at all if they will use English, Tagalog, or a mixture of the language, but I am after how they understand the short story. Okay? Then I give them grades. Okay? And kumisa nga ang final examination ko, mag-translate sila ng short story. Gagawin nilang comics. Okay? So I triggered some of the creative minds of my pupils during those time. Tapos, meron pang challenge yan na gagawa sila ng declamation piece out of the short story, out of the novel. And then we will have our culminating activity of declamation contest or oratorical contest. You know, there are so many activities that you could do to trigger the reading interest of our learners. Yung mga culminating activities nila. Creative teaching ang tawag ng sa kanina. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much po, RD, for the very productive and comprehensive sharing and open forum. Ano po, ang daming insights, ang daming sharing from our participants. And thank you so much po sa inyong lahat. We cannot read all of your comments, pero it's more of thank yous and appreciation of our lecture. So muli po, RD, thank you very much po for that sharing. We learned so much po from you. I'm now turning the virtual floor to Ma'am Sandra Magkamit. Ma'am Sandy, good morning.
Maraming salamat po, of course, to Dr. Nicolas Capulong. Maraming salamat po. That was really a good start sa Reading Congress natin ngayon. And thank you for the comprehensive sharing po. Thank you for providing our participants additional learning and inspiration. And also, thank you, Sir FR, for perfectly moderating this session. Maraming salamat po. Although hindi po namin mababasa ang ilan pang mga comments and suggestions, don't worry po. Si RD po mismo, mababasa po niya ito. Maraming salamat po. And that is the statement of purpose and direction setting. It's 12:02. So we will be having our lunch break po muna. But do not forget po our diagnostic test or pre-test na nandito na po sa ating chat box. We will close the pre-test immediately before 1 p.m. So make sure po that you're able to answer our pre-test. Thank you very much and happy lunch. Thank you so much, RD.
See you.
Thank you po.